What's the best investment you ever made?
The best investment I ever made is the investment in myself. That has given me a much better return than any real estate, than any stock, and even than any cryptocurrency. And when I say best investment in myself is two things. Number one is the investment that I have made in my own education outside of school. So books, podcasts, classes, coaching. Number two, the failures. I have made a lot of mistakes. They have cost me a lot of stress, a lot of headache, a lot of money, but they have taught me a ton. So we'll talk about real estate for a second. If we go back to the first condo, the sunshine and rainbows is I rent this property up for $600 a month. But the downfall, or the risky part and the bad part, is that I made every mistake possible. Number one, I hired a bad contractor. Number two, I hired a property manager, which I didn't realize was a fake property manager. We didn't even sign a lease with the tenant. I didn't even sign a contract with the property manager. They weren't working with the tenants, and they gave the tenant my phone number. So here I am sitting in my organic chemistry class, getting calls from my tenant saying the property is going to implode because the light bulb fused. Then we brought in a bad tenant.
Can I ask you a question there?
Yeah.
Then? How could you have avoided all of this?
Well, I could have either, number one, had a real estate investor that I could have talked to, which I didn't have access to. I read a lot of real estate books. So if you say, what could I have done differently?
To avoid it. Because there's people listening right now that are going, Jesus, I want to get into this real estate game, but I don't want to go through all those mistakes.
You can learn as much as you want. You're going to make mistakes. It is a part of the process. You can learn everything you want, but every real estate deal is unique. You are going to screw up. And I have made a lot of screw-ups. But once you get through the screw-ups, it becomes a lot easier. I call it the hurdle. But then things get even more exciting because now I bring on a new property manager. And the tenants move out. And then we think everything is good. And now I get a letter delivered to me, hand-delivered. Well, this is a nice gift. It says, Jaspreet Singh, you are being sued. And I said, what? Those tenants then sued me because they claimed that the bathtub was too slippery when the water was on. True story. And now here I have this lawsuit. I'm 21, 22. I have no idea what's going on.
Jaspreet, was the bathtubs too slippery?
Well, I'll tell you exactly what happened. There was a chip about the size of a quarter in the bathtub. The paint had chipped. They filed a complaint with my new property manager. Thank God I switched property managers because what a good property manager does is they're going to document everything that happens. So my property manager documents that, okay, tenant complains of a chip in their bathtub. We send out the contractor. So the property manager sends out the contractor. They go there to fix the chip in the bathtub. And you know what the tenant says? Can you come back a different time? My husband slipped and fell at a friend's barbecue, and so we don't want you to fix that chip today. The contractor says, okay, we note this down. He tries to then fix the chip 3 more times, but the tenant denies it every single time. And so we thought, okay, just let us know when you want the chip fixed. The contractor is waiting. They never brought it up again. Then we get this lawsuit saying that we were negligent, that I'm this evil, greedy human being because I refused to fix this chip in the bathtub, which made the bathtub slippery when the water was on, which caused this person to slip and fall and break their hip. And so now we go through the lawsuit process. Thankfully, I had insurance, but the insurance company still has to pay for the attorney. I still have to be involved through all the proceedings. And now they're claiming that because I didn't fix this chip, it made the bathtub slippery, and that's what caused this tenant to get hurt. But we had the documentation saying that they slipped and fell at a friend's barbecue. And then we go through the hospital records, and we found out that this person slipped and fell at a barbecue. But they wanted to get some money out of this rich landlord. I'm a 22-year-old kid, a 21-year-old kid. I have no idea what's going on. And so the insurance company had to settle. They paid $14,000 to make the case go away.
It's interesting because even when people hear all of that, they think, gosh, I really don't want to go through that. So Jaspreet, please tell me something to avoid some of those things. and you know, as you were talking, I was writing down some principles.
Yeah.
And what the first principle that I wrote down, which could have avoided you a lot of that heartache, is to really, 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 really take time when picking people.
100%.
And no one does it. No one does it. And I have an investment portfolio where I have 40, 50 companies now. And if there was one piece of advice that I'd give to all of those portfolio companies, which I know they are not going to listen to, no matter how passionately I say it, no matter if I bang on the desk, no matter if I scream or show them my scars, the one piece of advice I'd say to them is that recruitment is the single most important thing. And you can say that to people, but they still rush the process. They still will just go with their vibes and bias. They'll still just go with the person who sounds the smartest. They won't acknowledge the fact that they don't know what good looks like. You don't know what good looks like. If you start with this base premise, which most people don't start with, which is, I am really, really bad at recruitment. If you start with that, then you'll put systems in place to alleviate the downsides of you being really bad at recruitment. And if you had started with that when you were, 20 years old or whatever it might have been, you would have gone to seek out someone else's opinion on which contractor to hire, which tenants to bring in. Mm-hmm. And that could have alleviated a lot of this pain, it seems like.
I was in a rush.
In a rush, yes.
I wanted to get it done. And so I'd find the cheapest and fastest contractor, the cheapest and fastest property manager, the cheapest and fastest, or not the cheapest, but the fastest tenant that I could bring in, because I wanted to do it quickly. I wanted to get there fast.
It reminds me of people picking romantic partners. I was in a rush, so I ignored the red flags. And it's funny because you said the cheapest. This is actually what plays out in business all of the time. Is I speak to these young founders that are starting businesses and they go, Steve, yeah, I know you say like take time and hire great people, but look at the salary. This person costs $100,000 and this one's $50,000. So I'm going to go for the one that saves me money. And that is the trap.
One of the most expensive things that you can do is be cheap. And I learned that the hard way because I was born to be cheap. I talked about how Indian people make $1 to spend 20 cents. That was my family growing up. And that was the way that I was raised, that if you become a doctor, you'll make a nice 6-figure salary. You can live off of $30,000 a year and save a whole lot of money. And I never questioned it. But this is a very kind of just don't spend money. That's how you build wealth. Because if I give you money, that means I'm taking my wealth and giving it to you and I'm getting nothing in return. And it goes back to that mindset. Money is abundant. And that scarcity thinking is one of the most expensive things that you can do.
So true.
And I'll give you a story of this. I told you, if you want to talk about mistakes, we can go for hours and days about my mistakes because I screwed up a lot. I had an accountant and